Greetings, creatures of the interweb. Welcome to the Piscopod. This is episode 3. I'm your host, Sasha. Thanks for tuning in. Wow, there's a lot to talk about this week. I'm just going to get right into it. Who had World War III on their bingo card? Because I sure didn't. Wow. Yeah. It seems like that I closed my eyes and blinked, and all of a sudden I opened my eyes and we're on the cusp of World War III. Good old Donald J. Trump, the guy that said he didn't want to go to war. I mean, maybe that's still his stance, but it sure seems like a weird way to go about it. Tensions are certainly escalating. Everybody's on edge. We can globally look forward to the price of everything going up because everybody knows that anytime there's an excuse to raise the prices on gas and energy and groceries and this and that and the other thing, you know that they're going to do it. So I don't have skin in this game either way. I think that, the shit that's going on in the Middle East is frightening. I am not a supporter of Hamas in Gaza and the things that they do or did, particularly October 7th and stuff. Absolutely abhorrent behavior. Not unusual, but abhorrent. Now, of course, I'm going to be labeled an anti-Semite when I say that I'm not really digging what the state of Israel has been doing. And, I'm not telling anybody what to think. I'm just hoping that through dialogue and conversation that you're going to think. Because everybody knows nowadays everything isn't as it seems. The media is slanted, and it certainly is in this case because there's stuff that you see coming from independent sources on the ground in both Iran and Gaza and Israel is certainly... Well, you can see when you watch media from different parts of the world, it's like you're watching a different news story, yet you know that it's coming from, the same region. Everybody's reporting on the same thing, except there's just this multifaceted slant to everything that's going on. When I say who had World War III on their bingo card, I mean, about a week ago, United States, Director of Intelligence, Director of National Intelligence, DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, she's on record all over the internet talking about how she has no knowledge that Iran is not abiding by the pact that they signed, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Pact or Act or something like that. And that was about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. Now, all of a sudden, in these short 2 weeks, Iran has become an existential threat to American citizens, to the Western world, to freedom as we know it. If you listen to the media and you listen to the neocons and, and the typical ones that are always coming out for, let's send our boys over or let's do something about it. They love war. And in the blink of an eye, it seems like the world is getting closer and closer and closer to that doomsday clock, the witching hour, 12 o'clock. Let's be honest with one another. Israel launched what they call a preemptive attack. And I laugh when I say that because, it always seems that nation, they're either getting attacked or doing preventative attacks or preemptive attacks. And nobody ever questions them. They've been bombing Gaza, killing tens of thousands, for sure, if not more, innocent women and children. When they're not bombing hospitals, of course, because the Hamas has military installations, in schools and hospitals and urban areas, which is horrendous. But if you've been watching the videos coming out of Tel Aviv, when their Iron Dome is in operation, it looks to me like those countermeasure missiles are coming from urban areas. They don't look like they're, off of military bases. They look like they're amongst the buildings and amongst the Jewish folks living in Tel Aviv. So there's this double standard that I'm seeing, especially on Western news. They've been committing a genocide for about 2 years. Don't get me wrong. I fully believe they had the right to, I don't want to say enact revenge, but to, punch back after what happened on October 7th. So I think that violence is morally justified if it's in a self-defense fashion. And them retaliating after that was in a self-defense fashion. Now, having said that, though, you also want to look at all aspects with somewhat of a critical eye. And if you've been following anything on independent news sources and stuff like that, there's certainly a lot of questions that can be asked about what happened on October 7th. For instance, the Israeli army, they're no slouches. The IDF, they're a very capable group of military commanders and soldiers, and the Mossad, everybody knows that they're the elite of the elite as far as intelligence agencies go. They're world-renowned for their cunningness. It's not hard to back that up when you see things like the detonating cell phones that they sent to Hamas after the October 7th thing. So they were just calling them up, and when the bad guy answered, they would detonate the phone. That's sophisticated. That is the wheels of a very capable machine in order to enact an operation like that and have it go off basically without a hitch. Imagine the work that it would take, the intelligence that it would take in order to get compromised cell phones in the hands of everybody that needed the compromised cell phone. Pretty advanced. Then you jump ahead a little bit and you see what they did most recently in Iran when they launched basically a 3 or a 4-pronged preemptive, as they say, a preemptive attack on Iran where they took out their nuclear facilities while simultaneously taking out all the scientists that worked in their nuclear program, while simultaneously taking out their top 2 or 3 generals that would be, kind of the crisis, the crisis heads if things go awry. They would be the ones making the decision, probably through the Ayatollah, but nevertheless, key figures in the Iranian military. They took them all out in one fell swoop. And again, I've said this in previous podcasts where I criticize that if they have those kind of capabilities, I find it very, very hard to wrap my head around the fact that for 2 years they've been denying aid and basically carpet bombing Gaza. I'm going to go out on the limb. I'm going to say I think that Netanyahu's a war criminal. I think that they use this moniker of God's chosen people as a cloak of immunity, if you will, because, hey, how can you fault God's people? Everything is God's will, right? But I don't think that if the Bible was talking about the Israelites as being God's people, I have trouble believing that they are referring to the current regime that's presiding over the state of Israel. I just don't think that correlates. Again, the media has been all over this, spinning it one way. Ted Cruz, on the other hand, is running his mouth on Tucker Carlson and totally shitting the bed and letting the cat out of the bag. I don't know if you guys happened to see that interview, Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, but it was eye-opening how complicit our politicians are in these never-ending global conflicts. Never-ending. It's been a while since we've been at war. We better drum up a war, and make Halliburton some more money, or however they go about it. Because let's be honest with one another. And again, I'm speaking personally. Israel, Iran, not my flags, not my war. I can sympathize for both sides. I firmly believe that the shit that the state of Israel has going on with the world, shooting them the skunk eye about the genocide that's happening in Gaza, I think that they needed a PR spin, because lo and behold, nobody is talking about the shit that's going on in Gaza still to this day. But now we're talking about the existential threat of Iran. But don't worry, the U.S. is not involved in this. Enter Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz interview. If you've seen it, it was jaw-dropping. From the sheer stupidity of not knowing anything about the country of Iran, and Tucker Carlson so eloquently put it, how can you not know? This is like a country that you're trying to topple. You're trying to topple the government, and you know nothing. Nothing. He didn't know how many people lived there, which you would think as a guy that's voting for military action, you might want to know how many people they got living there before you send your boys off to die on foreign sands, no? He was dancing around the AIPAC questions about it being a lobby group for basically for Israel. He was dancing around that pretty good. He loved to dance around the fact that he all but said that the Mossad is spying on United States soil. But he said that's okay because everyone's doing it and we're doing it to them. I mean, I'm thinking that this guy, if he was ever caught by the enemy, I hope he doesn't know too many secrets, because that guy's going to sing like a bird. He let the cat out of the bag that it was Iran, conveniently, that had 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And when asked, which 2 assassination attempts? Oh, well, he misspoke. And again, it was a lot of double talking and word salad and never really answered anything. So, but he did let the cat out of the bag when he was pressured by Tucker Carlson. He says, yes, we're doing something about it right now. We're bombing the hell out of them, meaning Iraq. Where Tucker Carlson points out, wait a minute, I thought it was Israel bombing. Oh, well, yeah, it is Israel bombing them, but with our support. And Tucker says, well, just last night, President Trump was on TV talking about the fact that the United States has no involvement in this, none whatsoever. Now you're breaking news. And again, his sidestepping and word salad to discount the fact that he basically said the American government is lying to the people. And in no short order, all of a sudden we're hearing reports that 6 B-2 bombers are flying. Well, by the time this airs, they have actually done their business, actually. They flew into Iraqi airspace, dumped some bunker busters, and apparently destroyed whatever it is that they were trying to destroy. So this is a clear escalation on the part of the United States government, because they actually sent United States forces, being those pilots of the B-2 bombers, into more or less a sovereign country's airspace to bomb them. And my question is, why did they do that? And then when you open your eyes and do a bit of research, it's been on the constant prodding of the state of Israel. What does the state of Israel, how or why does it have such a huge stranglehold on American politics? It's a question that, it's a fair question. We should have stuff like that answered, right? Because, sending American men and women, and if it turns into a global conflict, it'll be, innocent people from all over the world that are going to be sent to fight this war. And everybody knows it's not about the nukes in Iran. I mean, everybody knows that. We heard that before. The weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That's why we're going after Saddam Hussein, only to find out a short time later that, oopsie, there was no weapons of mass destruction. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that these people weren't bad people, but we seem to be getting, they seem to be pulling their stories from the same playbook over and over again. Oh, it's, they're a week away from having a nuclear bomb. They're months away, they're weeks away, they're enriching uranium. And we've been hearing that story for 30 years. 30 years. Now you ask, well, those Iranians, they sure hate the Jews. Yeah, they do. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not an anti-Semite. But it's not hard to see why they have such an aversion for them when you look into the history of how the state of Israel was born. And let's be honest, all they want to do now is imperialize it, because they just want to expand, right? And by expansion, they mean literally rubbing everybody that's in their way out, because that's how they got where they are so far. Is they basically just went to their land, took these people's homes, and There's certain areas where the Palestine government, they have certain powers, but then in other areas, it's all Palestinian people living under Israeli rule. And it seems obvious that it's expansion. It has nothing to do with nukes. It has nothing to do with what President Trump wants or what Prime Minister Netanyahu wants, because this war, this conflict, isn't instigated by them. This is done by bankers and tech overlords, and it's about commerce. It's about world trade. That's why I said earlier on, we're going to see the price of everything going up, because as long as this Iranian government has control over their area, the Strait of Hormuz, I believe is what it's called, I would probably imagine that it's going to be shut down from tankers and a huge swath of commerce that goes through that area to the rest of the world, right? So oil shipments, all sorts of stuff like that is going to be delayed. And of course, if it's delayed, it's a reason to to jack the price on everything. Now, I don't know about you guys out there, but I, for one, am fucking sick and tired of these governments reaching into our pockets and pulling money out, leaving us with nothing in order to fund these continuous conflicts on their road to world domination, for lack of a better word. Like, I'm not trying to be a doomsday sayer here, but, let's call a spade a spade. Israel attacked Iran. Iran is punching back. Now, all of a sudden, Israel realizes, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think that they were going to fight back like this. So now they have to call on Big Brother America. And instead of adhering to what he campaigned on, that he was the anti-war president, they probably just showed him some top secret briefings, whether legit or not, just to scare good old Donald J. Trump. And next thing you know, he's sending bombers over. And now what? So what's Russia going to do? What's China going to do? What's Pakistan going to do? Are they just going to let it slide? I don't think so. I don't think so. As I am airing this, my wife has told me that there's already been suicide bombing in Syria in a Christian church. There was a shooting, I think, in the United States as well, in a Christian church. I could be wrong in the location, but I'm pretty sure it was the United States. So let's be honest. We are seeing the easily predicted fallout from what just happened. Here at home, in my beloved country of Canada, my home and native land, we held the G7 most recently. Cost $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion with a B. Cost $1 billion for this soiree, and the guest of honor, Trump, being Trump, he had to leave early, clearly, because there was war to be had in the Middle East. He had to, he had bigger fish to fry. And I get it. Believe me, I'm not an American citizen, but he had my vote going into this. He really did. I did not think that Kamala Harris was, or the Democratic Party, anybody in it, was the answer to the problems that the United States, just like Canada, is facing. And I think that the United States did the right thing by how they voted. I think Canada shit the bed. But at the same time, let's be honest with one another. You can vote for someone and not like everything that they do. Now, again, I'm not an American citizen, so I didn't vote for Trump, but he had my full support. I think that his stance on America first is what every country should be legally required to do, to be honest with you. Again, talking about where I live, we have uncontrolled homelessness, homeless camps popping up everywhere, record numbers of people, visiting food banks. A sign that shit's not going too good for the economy. People living paycheck to paycheck, household debt through the roof. Yet Montgomery Burns Carney, he pledged $4.3 billion to the war effort in Ukraine. Because, the Russians, they're bad guys, right? The Russians are bad guys, and of course we want the Ukraine to be part of NATO. Because no other country would get upset if a foreign power started putting military bases and stuff like that in their backyard. I'm almost positive, the United States wouldn't get too upset if China all of a sudden put a base in Tijuana and then another one in, Estevan, Saskatchewan. You know what I mean? So if you're listening to the news, it's just slanted. They don't report, the Israeli Iron Dome. Everything is good in Canada. We need to increase immigration. They're telling you one thing, and your own eyes and your own experience are clearly telling you something completely different. They're teaching hatred for capitalism. Freedom isn't good. Freedom needs to be curtailed. We can't be trusted with our own freedom. Folks, we're living in really bizarre times. It's frightening. Like I said, are we on the cusp of World War III? Are we living a focused effort on the destruction of the middle class around the world? Again, I'm speaking for Canada. If I think our prime minister should step down. I think he's a failed leader. His whole fear mongering. Oh, I'm the only one that can stand up to Trump. We'll make $20 billion on tariffs, on our reverse tariffs to the United States, only to secretly put him to zero right after he was elected in a questionable election. So put him to zero. Throws a big G7 soiree. Trump leaves literally the next day after embarrassing him on legacy media, on the Canadian CTV or whatever. I watched my prime minister slouching, terrible posture, literally like Montgomery Burns off The Simpsons. Just this sniveling, deviant bag of what, standing there, just getting decimated by Trump, yet still kissing so much ass. I'm surprised he didn't get pink eye. It was embarrassing. And then after everything is said and done, the only people to actually get some sort of a tariff arrangement out of the G7 meeting was the UK. Canada, once again, the big goose egg, folks. Zilch show, right? This is our elbows up. This brilliant economist He still hasn't released what his conflicts of interest are. He won't release it. He says that it's in a blind trust. So a little research shows you that right before he was elected prime minister, one of his formats or platforms was to completely eliminate fossil fuel powered vehicles. Convenient, seeing that Brookfield Investments has huge holdings in the EV market. Not surprising that the prime minister, but there's no conflict of interest. He just wants Canada to have all electric vehicles. He doesn't want to ruin our environment by getting the massive amounts of oil reserves that we have in Alberta. He doesn't want to get those to market. Again, is it a conflict of interest that he has fossil fuel holdings like all over the world, everywhere but Canada? So when Canada has to import its energy from outside sources, that the likelihood that his mitts are somewhere in this pie is pretty reasonable to think. Nah, just a coincidence. It's all in a blind trust. Trust me. He's coming after homeowners' equities now because him and his cabal of useless tits up on Parliament Hill, they feel that people that have done the right thing most of their lives, invested in a home, worked hard, paid for their home, and now are mortgage free. Well, that's like winning the lottery. And, we think that the government should, maybe have a part of that as well. So, yeah, that's what's going on in my world. It's been a whole year. I recently celebrated a birthday, and I was having a nice glass of bourbon, sitting on the deck, reflecting on the changes that I've seen come and go in this year. And man, there's been a lot, and not good. I think that we're living in dangerous times. I think this is the final push into what the real people that control the governments are trying to do. People are waking up. People are starting to speak out. People are starting to, see both sides of the conflicts that are facing us. Yet the machine is ever so powerful in trying to divide us. If it isn't red and blue, it's black and white. If it's not black and white, it's straight and gay. If it's not straight and gay, it's haves and have-nots. It's in full force. They know this awakening from society is their existential threat, because everybody knows that we are far more powerful united than we are divided. That's why the concerted effort to keep us divided, in my opinion. So, for this week's episode, I am foregoing the entertainment portion of, what I usually talk about. What's the skinny in the entertainment world? But I want you folks to think about what's going on in the world. Think about, who we are aligning ourselves with. Follow the money. Why are we getting into this war? What did Iran do to us? And when I say us, I mean, let's say North America. Because let's be honest, if nukes are coming over, I think here in Canada, I'm just not going to fare much better than anywhere else, in continental North America. So we need to be aware, and we need to start speaking out when we see these injustices happening, both locally and abroad. I think there's some strange things afoot. I don't think that any of it is out of the blue as far as this whole Israel-Iran thing. This isn't something that just happened in the last few weeks. This has been something that's been on the books and in the planning stages for decades. I mean, just go back and look at Israelis' television's old stock footage of interviews and stuff like that with Netanyahu. I mean, like I said, they're not even creative anymore. They're still using the same playbook. He almost parroted the same thing when he coerced the United States into going into Iraq. So I ask all the politicians, when have we ever done anything in the Middle East that has been positive? When did that ever fare well for those who went in there? Again, I'm not anti-Semitic. I am not an Islamophobe. I think that both sides, are doing some fucked up things. But I firmly believe that the state of Israel is sure getting a pass on a lot of things that nobody else would get a pass for. No questions asked, we're the people of God. It's written in the Bible like this. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. If you like what I'm doing, please hit the subscribe button below. Send me some comments. Tell me what you think. Love one another. Keep your eyes open. Stay vigilant. Pay attention. And thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you next week. Hopefully next week I have some more positive news to report on. But this week has really been coming in fast and furious. Crazy how fast it went from, I don't even remember talking about Iran for the longest of times. And now all of a sudden it's on, that country's on everybody's lips. They're this existential threat. By the time you're hearing this broadcast, Trump has already sent tactical bombers in to bomb a sovereign country. And I think that there's going to be big fallout from this. I don't think that this is going to just blow over like most people are hoping. Anyway, folks, again, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate all the thumbs up. Take care of yourselves. Send me a comment. Mash the subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. See ya.